Hey, welcome to Picking Daisies, the podcast where we dive into all things messy, beautiful, and a little bit chaotic. I'm Mary Hendricks, your hot mess of a host, ready to walk with you through every laughable, cry-worthy, and grow-worthy moment. Every Tuesday, join me and an incredible lineup of fellow moms, women, and experts as they share their own stories of growth, resilience, and silver linings that they've uncovered. Together, we're building a village, a reminder that even in the thick of it, you are truly never alone. Because let's be real, we all have our mess. Everyone's got those moments. But here, we are finding the beauty in it, also the humor, and growing from whatever life and motherhood may bring our way. Welcome to Picking Daisies. Hi, Picking Daisies. Hi, Riley.
Hi.
Hi. Yay. Okay. I am so excited. I don't know what I'm titling this episode yet, but it's probably going to give you a hint of some sort as to what the conversation is going to be like. And a lot of you have been begging me to cover this topic more. And I'm not an expert in anything. I would like to remind everyone of that. I am just I'm an expert in myself and my family, although not in myself because I don't. Are we ever experts in ourselves?
I feel like we're experts in ourselves. We know ourselves better than anyone else.
We know
right?
That's true. But then, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Type of thing. But that's really all I can say. But I am someone, as you're going to hear, we're going to be talking about what you'll hear often on social media, gardening. I don't know, Riley, you can give me what other things have you heard? Like nicknames. Gardening's the big one.
Yeah, for cannabis consumption.
Yeah.
Plant
medicine.
Yeah, herbal medicine. Chiefers. I like to use chiefers. Everyone's like, what's that mean? Stoners.
Stoners. Yeah. I don't know if you could say that though. Yeah, gardening's a big one. Gummies. You'll hear gummies a lot because I feel like that's
good mom language because I feel like that just is like safe for most people.
Yeah. But we're going to be talking about that. I am a expert in me using it. And that's a shocker for a lot of people. And I've been talking about this on social media. And I love when I hear people shocked when they hear me talking about this subject. That's always my first thing. One of the first messages, and we're going to get into your introduction in a second, that I ever got when I started opening up about this subject was, I can't believe that this is where you're taking the growth of your page, that this is what you've chosen to the message that you're going to be doing. I don't expect this from you.
It's unprofessional and you're going to be exiled for talking about it.
Yeah. And I was like, we need to sit with that. Who are you expecting this from then? And I said, isn't that the whole point? Right now you're being challenged on what you've thought and what you believed of, I'm a mom. I take pretty damn good care of my kids. I love my kids. I'm a responsible adult. And I also like to smoke a shit ton of pot. and it's great. It's a great time. And a lot of people wouldn't know that and whatnot. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But I have Dr. Riley Kirk here. I have a habit of getting past and ahead of myself. But I want to read something. I'm not going to pretend like I can just know this from memory, but I want to just share who Dr. Riley Kirk is because she is incredible. This is someone I've become a nerd because of you, and it's incredible. So Dr. Riley Kirk is a cannabis research scientist and educator with a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences, specializing in natural product chemistry. She studies medicinal plants and how they impact health and wellness. Currently, she's the assistant associate professor at the University of Rhode Island, URI, has worked in immunology research, biotech, and the cannabis industry, and is passionate about making cannabis science accessible to everyone. You also co-founded the network of applied pharmacognosy. I can't pronounce
Pharmacognosy. That's a really hard one.
NAP. Okay. Yeah. A nonprofit focused on credible cannabis education and hosts Bioactive. This is the podcast that I, again, love this. I'm going to link all of this stuff in the show notes, but your podcast, I don't know how I found it, but I did. And I'm just going to tell you all, please go listen to it, especially if you're someone here that, if you've never done any of this, if you have no plans of even wanting to ever do it, go listen to this because it's just fascinating, the science behind it. And that's why I'm not an expert in anything, but I'm bringing someone that is here. And that's what we're going to talk about. So her Bioactive podcast, and then that breaks down cannabis, psychedelics, pharmaceuticals, and other bioactive substances. And I have her on today so we can talk all of these things and kind of just we're going to make this I want to make this more of a gardening for dummies type of thing.
Because I love that.
Because I think that's probably one of my biggest my messages that I get when I share about this is I don't know where to begin.
It's such a great way to start. I was literally having dinner last night with a lot of big cannabis researchers in the industry, and this exact topic came up, saying like, how do we better introduce people to cannabis? Because we want to make sure that people have a good time. We also want to make sure, some people want to use it to relax, people want to use it to be productive, some people want to be playful if you're a parent and you want to have like a good tea party, whatever that is. So like learning how to dose and find products that are going to work without having to try 100 different things. And one of the topics that came up that we were talking about is, I think one of the issues is when you purchase something from a dispensary, it's almost in a form that's implied to be a serving size, like a 1 gram joint or a 10 milligram gummy. And that's not a good starting place for people. Actually, that's significantly too much. So I think
a lot.
I think that's part of the problem.
Now, if you go and take, especially gummies, we could talk about that too. But like I say that to moms, and I'm like, start very little, very, very little, because if you haven't touched it in a very long time, like, and I always say too, like when I'm met with conflict about this subject, a lot of times I think that the people that are holding such a stigma are those that are uneducated, uninformed, obviously, or they had something, or if they've tried it, they did it wrong. Like they didn't do it the way, and it's because they didn't have the information accessible to them to actually enjoy it. Because I think, and I think that's a big part of the stigma too, is when I tell people that I like to smoke pot. I'm like everyone. I'm a pothead. I have bowls. I have one hitters. I have flower. I have gummies. I love dabbing. That's like a new thing that I've gotten into.
Me too. I think it's the most
so much fun.
It makes me so productive. Like I love it for daytime. It's like my go-to.
I have my pen on me.
I love that you use all the tools in the toolbox. This is something I preach about all the time. It's like you don't just need to like smoke weed. Like there's so many different ways to consume, and you're going to have different effects no matter like the different ways that you consume. Like, so we talked about gummies. I think for a lot of people, like my science brain is like, oh, a 10 milligram gummy, I'm going to cut this in half, blah, blah, blah. But then you realize like for a lot of people, it's just a gummy. That dose is a gummy. So I think, again, like that's an educational component of being like, you need to make sure you're checking how many milligrams, and you need to make sure you're starting really slow and then like working your way up. And especially with gummies, because they can take so long to feel the effects for. Like it can take up to 2 hours for some people. So unlike smoking or vaping, where you can take a hit and be like, all right, let me vibe out and see how I feel, you can kind of titrate your dose better. Well, with gummies, it's like all or nothing sometimes, and it's 2 hours later.
Well, and gummies too, and you can explain this to me. The high that you get from a gummy is, I know it's different. It's a completely different high. And I actually on TikTok, I asked yesterday, I dabbed. I turned up the heat. I have a Puffco and I love it so much, but I turned the heat all the way up at the end of the night because
to like white or to red.
Oh, white, full on was gonna be gone, and I overdid it, fully overdid it. And I'm usually a very happy gardener. Like I like to garden when I gardener. Can I just smoke pot? I like to smoke pot. I don't have to do this. I'm so used to social media. And like
I know. I feel you. It's hard to train yourself.
Yeah, because you feel bad. Like you feel like you have to keep it hush hush. It's so stupid. But I like to do that when I'm in like a good state of mind. I don't like to do it as it doesn't numb me. And I think that's my biggest thing that I always tell people when they want to make the switch from alcohol to pot, especially. I'm always very big into saying like, you have to understand that alcohol is going to make you feel a completely different way that I personally have never experienced with marijuana ever. Like I've never felt numb to a point. I may be like completely smushed into a couch, but I'm not numb in emotions. And I'm, if anything, I'm more aware. And that's what makes it so much so
gives
uncomfortable.
People like anxiety sometimes. Is like you do have more flooding of emotions and thoughts and creativity, and it can be, especially if you're used to your change in consciousness being alcohol, as you're saying, like that's numbing. It's oftentimes like kind of sedating for people. It's kind of almost, I mean, you're literally micropoisoning yourself, right? So like that's the feeling you get from alcohol. Whereas cannabis is a, slightly psychoactive, really expansive experience. When a lot of people do experience anxiety, and there are ways to prevent that. But at the same time, I'm also like, okay, well, what's your body trying to tell you at the same time? Like, is there something you need to process? Is there something you need to think about? Is there something, you need to get done? Sometimes a little bit of anxiety is okay. But of course, if you're chronically getting really bad anxiety from using cannabis, we can work on that. There's ways to work through that.
Yeah. Well, and so I did. And it was because I like to do it when I'm in a good state of mind so that way I'm enjoying it. Like I want to enjoy. Otherwise, being a mom, I am prone to anxiety. I do have anxiety. That's one of the many reasons why it's been so helpful for me. But I've also trained to know that like we just got out of 3 weeks of my kids being sick where I was like, I'm already at a heightened state as I should have. So I think I over gambled and I went down the rabbit hole. So I'm asking people about like on TikTok and it's gaining traction because I love it. And I'm like, how do you cut a high real quick? Because I've never been in that predicament of being so uncomfortable. Oh my God, I couldn't move. I was afraid to get out of my bed. It was
I've been there. It's actually extremely uncomfortable. And again,
it's
like
so bad.
What you're talking about was when a new person's trying cannabis, and I talk about this in my book so much that if you are the experienced stoner in your group, or if you're introducing somebody to cannabis, take that super seriously. Never dose them too much because that one experience that they have with you is going to shape their entire opinion on this medicine. So like take it really seriously. It is like they put their trust in you. But there are a few ways to kind of lessen your high. Some of them are scientifically based. Some of them are more just like community based. I'm curious what you did, but I'll explain a few things.
I just sat there and prayed for it to end. I was afraid to move.
Sitting and praying is one option.
The responses that I'm getting to are so funny. Oh crap! I have to turn on Do Not Disturb. The responses I'm getting are so funny too because there's some women that are like, sometimes I have to have my husband come and lay on top of me. So
I was going to say weighted blanket is a great option for one of them.
Like all of those are like some people I'd say I just like lay flat in the middle of the carpet. Other people are like I take a cold shower and cry. Like just funny responses of being like they didn't have that. But peppercorn, I know a lot of people have said that.
That's a scientifically backed one. Like chewing on peppercorns, getting that beta caryophyllene, which can help reduce the high.
Now, and going back because I was saying edibles and gummies are different type of high because obviously the way your body is processing, is that only going to work if I eat a gummy? Or what if I'm like, again, I dabbed like real too hard? Would that have cut my high?
It probably would have. I mean, we don't have actual research on that, but I think it should have still helped because that can still reach your brain. And it's really all about like those molecules interacting with receptors. But I will say overdoing it on dabbing and smoking, you're in a much better place than overdoing it on edibles. Like,
it came down. It was only like a half an hour.
Right. So at least the end is near. You're like, okay, I just got to make it through this and I'm going to be okay. Get some fresh air, get some water, put a weighted blanket on.
An edible experience. So guys, if you're hearing me and I'm saying I couldn't get out of bed, it's bad. And I went down the rabbit hole. I knew it was going to go bad when I all of a sudden started thinking about the afterlife. I knew it was like, and I was like, oh no.
undo.
It's going down further and further. But I just sat there and then it was fine. Again, smoking and vaping and dabbing and all that stuff. It's not as. That's why I always tell people to start there if you can, just because it's a quick hit.
I do too. And everyone's like, "Why are you telling people to smoke? We should only be taking edibles." And I'm like, okay, first of all, 20% of people can't feel edibles, so that's already a pretty stupid thing to say. And two, like as you're saying, the feeling of edibles is different because your liver needs to process that edible before those active compounds can reach your brain. So the THC is actually getting changed into different molecules, and you're not getting that full entourage effect that you get from inhaling. You're not getting all of those terpenes. You're not getting all of these other like aromatic compounds. You're really, it's a heavy hit of like THC or the metabolite of THC that's hitting your brain. And it typically is more sedating. It's a very different experience. I don't like the edible high. And actually, my last horrible experience with cannabis was from an edible. Yeah, I was making canna butter for my parents because they prefer edibles. So I was like, you know what? I have so much flour. Like I grow. I'm going to infuse some butter for you guys. So I infused some, and then my dumbass was making pierogies that night. And I'm like, oh, sick. Like pierogies, canna butter. So I ate like 5 pierogies, like absolutely drenched in canna butter without even having an idea of what dose I was putting in my body. And like when people say when the edible hits, I mean, I was like in my kitchen and then I was just like knocked off my feet. Like, oh my gosh. And I laid down. Then people have told me in the past that they got sick from like threw up from overdoing it on edibles. And I was always like, oh, that doesn't make sense from like the science that I've read. But, you know, this is why lived experience is so important, because when I overdid it, I ended up getting sick. I got the spins, like my whole room was spinning. And I was supposed to fly out to Nova Scotia the next morning at like 8 a.m. And I hadn't packed. I hadn't done anything. And I was just like KO'd on the couch for hours. And I was like, there's no recovering from this. Like, I can't walk. I'm sick feeling. It's just a really, really negative experience. So I bet I took in like, you know, 80 to 100 milligrams of THC, which for me, like I'm used to like 5, maybe 10 on like a crazy night. That was just like really stupid, especially as like an educated consumer. Like I chose pierogies over dosing, and that was not smart.
Well, but that's where you have to be really careful. And again, there's so much. I feel like this conversation we can talk. And that's why everyone, we're obviously not going to cover everything, but please go to her podcast, Riley's podcast, just because, and go to her page too and everything. And you have a book. I know you had said that as well. That's coming out in June, didn't you say June?
Yeah, you can pre-order. It's actually right here. It's called Reefer Wellness, and it's all about actually the science of cannabis combined with like stoner knowledge, stoner education. Because, you know, I do have my PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. I'm a natural product chemist, but I've also been consistently using cannabis since I was 14 years old. I know a lot from just my personal experience. Almost all my friends are stoners. Like, we know a lot, and there's so much knowledge is in the community and not in the literature. So it's really important to like combine both of those angles so you can get a more nuanced approach and actually get helpful information on dosing and consumption methods, because you're not going to find that on PubMed. Like, nobody's publishing on that, but we know it as consumers.
Yeah, well, and that's, again, so please go check out all of that stuff. Again, I'll link all of it. Whatever we don't get to, I'm going to try covering as many questions as I can think of off the top of my head, because there's so many that I'm thinking of as, like you'd said, there's such a discrepancy of information out there where, because it is, well, the legalities of it have kind of made it a little bit different, because I'm in New Jersey. It just got legalized 2 years ago. And that changed the entire playing field for me, because anything I could access was something that was, I feel like the Delta 8 gummies are coming a little bit bigger. That wasn't as accessible then, but that was starting, and that was kind of a little scary, because you're like, I don't know if this is allowed. Like, I don't know what this is.
And it's synthetic. Like, you know, a lot of people are using plant medicine because it's plant medicine. And I like any state that has a huge Delta 8 HHC synthetic cannabinoid market, like, that's because you don't have access to the natural product. It's not because people want to be ingesting Delta 8 THC. It's because they don't have access to the plant. Yeah.
It's the last stitch effort to just have some sort of reach on it. But you were so limited in anything. And then also just because of the stigma, you don't want to bring it up in like a mom circle of being like, hey, where are you guys getting actual decent shit? Where I'm not going to get arrested and you guys aren't going to call CPS on me. Like,
that could go 2 ways, that conversation.
Right? Like, you don't have mom circles that are really, or at the time you didn't. I feel like it's starting to get a little bit better. And I think social media is like, I'm probably one of like, you know, like, I'm not a wholesome page, but I am kind of, I've been like a wholesome mom-ish page. I'm probably one of the first that are kind of taking the chance and just seeing what this does. But
it's brave. It's huge.
Well, and because the risk of knowing that, like, with brands and stuff like that, it could completely limit my reach, everything. And that's why, you know, we have to use nicknames of gardening and stuff like that. But I also think that that's, if you're sitting here with any doubt, hearing me being like, I still am not 100% before this. If we don't talk about it, we're never going to learn how to use it. People are going to use it wrong. And personally, this is from a selfish perspective. I don't want it to go anywhere, because if we can't do this safe, like, your stigma is going to stick around because we're going to hear unsafe situations happening. We're never going to learn. Like, my husband's a police officer. We're never going to learn how to police it. That's his biggest concern, is the policing of it, because there's such little research out there where, like, I know, I was actually asking him, and I don't know if you know much about legality stuff and whatever, but I said, you know, like, what if I took a gummy now? And gummies, they metabolize at different rates for everyone. And I drive tomorrow, I get in a car accident, they test me, they're going to see that I have THC in my system. Could they tell how long it's been in my system?
No, they can't. And that's a huge,
and that's
huge
what's
problem.
terrifying.
And I actually think that's a huge hurdle with legalization is because we can't tell that right now. And because cannabis, the feeling is very receptor based. Like THC interacting with a receptor, how much is actually like physically interacting with those receptors at that moment. It's very different than alcohol. With blood alcohol, like it's a pretty direct correlation. Like you have this much, your blood alcohol is at this percentage, that equals you're this much fucked up, right? Like that's a pretty clear correlation. With cannabis, it's not. It's, one, we build a tolerance to it like really, really fast. So some people can have some THC in their system and be absolutely fine at driving and motor vehicle function. We actually have data on that. We have research papers that show that people with a tolerance they have fine hand-eye coordination, right? So there's that statistic. There's also, I mentioned 20% of people can't feel edibles. They could have taken a 500 milligram edible. That's all in their body. It's all circulating through their system, but psychoactively, they don't feel anything. So
and that's we'll go real quick. That's because of different receptors that are everyone has different cannabinoid receptors, right?
Yeah, well, that specific component is because people's liver are metabolizing that edible differently at different rates, at different efficiencies. So specifically with edibles, because there's so many changes, even like what pharmaceutical drugs you're on, if they're processed by the same mechanism in the liver, you're going to have a different reaction to that edible. So
interesting.
It's just so personalized compared to something like alcohol that you can make these like huge assumptions based on a little bit of data. Whereas cannabis, you can't. We don't have the metrics to do that yet.
And that's because people aren't talking about it. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what makes it so hard, because
there's a lot of funding out right now for any researcher who can figure that out, because whoever can figure out essentially how to gauge how messed up somebody is. And honestly, I want to see the research in a much more objective way. I don't want to see it like, how much cannabis do you have in your system? I want to say like, okay, no matter if you're on opiates, cannabis, alcohol, whatever it is, like, why don't we just have a way of saying you're too messed up to drive or you're not? We need an objective way of measuring it, because blood tests are always going to be a little bit iffy. Like we just need better ways of measuring this that we just don't have yet.
Yeah, well, it's true, because it's funny, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm becoming a nerd, and that's why for everyone listening and whatnot, like I've gotten such an appreciation for it, because this isn't like a one-stop, like what a lot of people think about is like high school, of like someone come in with like a Ziploc baggie of just like dried up herb, like something that's like, you think about that. I did, at least. And when I heard about it, that's all I experienced. And then especially with the edible route, because when we had said like, I love smoking it, I enjoy it. I used to be a cigarette smoker sometimes. It was great. So it satisfies that side of things. And so I love smoking it. But you had said like, you get so much shit for saying like, why are you encouraging people to smoke? It's like, it's actually the safer option, I personally think, for a lot of users.
I would agree with that. And, we have data showing that for 80% of medical patients, they prefer smoking as their consumption method, right? So first of all, we can't ignore that data. We can't say that their experiences are not true. They have probably tried many different consumption methods, and they choose smoking as their preferred consumption method. And one of my first jobs in the cannabis industry was studying cannabis smoke and saying, okay, if so many people prefer this, what is so unique about it? There has to be something unique about smoking. And really what we found is, at high temperatures, when you light a joint on fire, that fire is acting as a catalyst, and it's changing a lot of the chemistry. So we call these transformations. So one of the best transformations that many canna nerds know is that THC is converted to a different cannabinoid called CBN, or cannabinol, when it's exposed to light or heat. So that's one of the big things happening during the smoking process, is a lot of that THC is changing to CBN, but it's actually changing to dozens of other compounds, and every single molecule in that plant is changing. You're just creating this whole new entourage effect when you're smoking cannabis, because that fire is acting as a catalyst. So really, you can't replicate that feeling of smoking with anything else, because again, it's just like a really unique experience producing really unique chemistry, which is going to produce really unique pharmacology.
Yeah. Well, and that's my biggest thing, is like, I would talk about that time and time again, but there's such a stigma with smoking it. Again, it goes back to this idea of like high school. If you're smoking it, you're gross because of the smell, which personally I don't
I
mind the
love the
smell, but
smell.
I
It's
think
my
it's
little
great.
attractant. Like, how do I
Yeah,
find friends? Oh, right
yeah. I'm like, oh
there.
hi. Yeah, I don't mind it at all. As opposed to like cigarette smell. I'm like, I actually kind of like it. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
But there's such a stigma with the type that you use. And again, I want to talk about it more because there was that impacted me when it first started becoming legal. Edibles was the first. And I feel like it's becoming a booming industry, especially amongst moms. I feel like moms are starting to get targeted a little bit more
The
for it
drinks too,
because,
which is kind of like within that edible
yeah.
category. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, all of that's starting to really pick up steam and whatnot. And they think that that's really the only option because if they go to smoking, there's something bad about it. There's something grungy and gross and like, I don't know. It's so silly, but I wish someone had kind of broken down and been like, you may hate gummies and gummies suck and maybe you had no experience on it, but keep an open mind to smoking because like I didn't know. I've learned so much in the last it's been like 6 years that I've really gotten into it. But
It's addicting once you start to learn about
well, you start to
cannabis.
learn about how
Yeah.
to use it well, like burning
Yeah.
it at different temperatures. I didn't know that I didn't know. I didn't know
Mhm.
that there was a difference. Like when I first got my pen, like because I didn't realize with the cartridges and stuff like that, I just was used to bowls. So I was like, I
Yeah.
didn't even know that like I knew that there was different lights on it. I just didn't know which one it meant. So I was doing it and my sister was like, you have got to look it up because every temperature does something different. And I was like, what do you mean? And then I actually talked to, we have a dispensary in town. I love the guy that owns it, but he was saying, yeah, if you burn it, you're going to get lower temperatures, more terpenes.
Yeah.
Correct?
More
Okay.
flavor too. Like you'll actually be able to taste those terpenes. And I'm a huge fan of dry herb vaping. I don't know if you've ever dry herb vaped
I bought
before.
one and I didn't like it. So I think I need a new one. So you got
What
to
can
give
I
me a
ask what kind you
recommendation.
bought, or you don't have to say that like here?
No, it was the G pen. I don't know. It was like
Okay, I've never
$80 at the
used that.
dispensary.
I'm like an old school Volcano fan, like Stores and Bickle Volcano. It was like the first dryer vaporizer on the
Okay.
market, and it's still my favorite. And it's kind of silly. It's like it looks like a volcano, so it's like this size, but a
Okay.
volcano. And you put a bag on it, and it's capturing the vapor. So what
Yeah.
I like about it is it's very visual for me that you can actually like visualize how much vapor and how cloudy that vapor is. And
Yeah.
at lower temperatures, like if I have new flower and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to taste the flavor of this, like cool terpene profile, whatever it is, I'll hit
Yeah.
it really low at like the lowest temperature it goes at. And then, I don't get super high from it, but I taste the
Yeah.
flavor and I'm like, cool, like that was a
Yep.
really unique experience. And then I'll just crank it up, like turn up
Yeah.
the temperature all the way. And
Yeah.
then you feel very, very high from it. You still
Oh,
might get
yeah.
a little flavor, but you get like a actual like milky
Experience.
cloud in the
Yeah.
bag. And it feels like smoking, but you're actually not combusting. So you're not putting, potentially carcinogenic products
Okay.
into your
Yeah.
body.
Okay. See, but that's the stuff I didn't know where I was like, you can turn it up. And for anyone listening, again, this is like, I'm going to do it for dummies. If you want to try buying a pen, okay, if you want to go get a pen, there's going to be settings on your pen, different lights. Go look at the user manual. If there's a low, whatever the low color is, start there. Start there first and just kind of enjoy it. If you are wanting to feel just like a little like, and especially with the terpenes, I don't know about like, I love my dispensary because we have like the way they filter it is you can go in and select like, I need something that's like for appetite suppressant or anti-anxiety, stress, calm, sleep, whatever. You can go in and then you can go and it will show you which terpenes align with that, and then you can select
Cool.
and like filter your terpenes based off
About
of the
time.
product.
Love it.
I love it. It's so good. But that right there has been such a help with me and mental health and like stuff like that, where I've been able to like, I have a collection of different concentrates and different flour and stuff like that, where I know what it's heavier in, where I'm like, this is the one I need. And like,
Nice.
and again, it's just, that's the stuff that people don't realize is that it's not all one size fits all. It's not all created equal. There's so many different benefits that you can get. And again, it's from different temperatures that you're burning it at that like, it's so many variables that can elicit a unique experience that like people don't realize that like if you enjoyed it once and you hated it,
There's
that's
so
cool.
many other options.
There's so many other options.
I love that you brought up like having like a whole repertoire of, dabs or concentrates or whatever it is. And I think this is what's so beautiful about cannabis versus like a pharmaceutical medicine. And I'm not here to bash pharmaceuticals. I'm just here to talk about cannabis. But, our bodies are really dynamic, especially as women. Our bodies change throughout the month, even day to day, even from beginning of day to the end of the day, right? And pharmaceutical medicine is kind of designed to be like, hey, take this same dose every single day, the same time, you're going to feel this way, right? Whereas cannabis medicine, we can learn to be more in touch with our bodies and say, okay, at this moment, I'm feeling like this. So I think that this strain would benefit me right now, or this consumption method would benefit me right now. And then also like another benefit to specifically smoking or potentially vaping is the social aspect, which I think we don't talk about enough. Like my friends and I have shared some of our deepest conversations over a joint or over a blunt or something where we're standing or sitting in a circle. We're all taking a puff. You're taking these really deep breaths, almost like meditation, like a deep inhale, deep exhale. You're talking, you're sharing stories, you're sharing that joint. If you're a home grower or you just like love flower, you can share the story of that. There's so much social aspect kind of just integrated into smoke circles, and people have been smoking in circles for a very, very long time. Like it is traditional medicine to share it in ceremony like that, to share it in groups of people. So I think that's another thing that just makes it a little more intentional, is like, having to roll up, having to walk outside. I always smoke outside, but that's just me. Walk outside, smoke, share it with a friend, even just share a joint with a friend. Be like, yo, I smoked this the other day. It was awesome. Here, I want to share that with you.
Yeah. There's just such a magnitude of appreciation for it that I didn't have, because again, just what everyone thinks about it is just, it gets lost. And I think in motherhood specifically, and Riley, you can share your little, your news.
Drum roll.
Duh.
Yes, I'm going to be a mother this year. So I'm pregnant with my first baby. I'm super, super excited about it. But as I mentioned, like I've been a cannabis consumer since I was 14 years old. So I've educated on cannabis and pregnancy, cannabis and breastfeeding, cannabis and postpartum. But like the firsthand experience is so unique. It's so different. And it's like my whole perspective has changed. But at the same time, like what I have been talking about is still very in line. But it just, you can't explain pregnancy. You just can't. You can't explain it. It's such a just completely unique spiritual. Your respect for the human body just goes off the chart.
All the way up.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Oh yeah. You are reborn. I talk about this all the time, but you're reborn. And I think, I don't know where, maybe it was you that were talking. It may have been you that were saying that statistically weed usage is bigger during monumental moments in life. Or was it you that were talking about that?
Yeah. For women, geez, what did
puberty?
I say?
Like puberty is
puberty,
like
menopause, the changes in life, like as your body's going, because using cannabis literally activates your endocannabinoid system, and that system allows your body to stay regulated and allows your body to stay in balance. So when you're going through these really aggressive changes, many people feel really out of balance. They feel really uncomfortable. They feel really sick. It's really hard to handle for a lot of people. And oftentimes no other medicine works except for cannabis.
There you go. And again, and when I said it's puberty, and when women, because we don't talk about this enough, matrescence is literally another term that we need to start incorporating more into when we think about womanhood and girlhood. You go through puberty. If you have babies, again, because matrescence is a choice, and if that is your life, not everyone's a mom. That's cool. But if you choose to be a mom, matrescence is one that we have to tack on there before menopause and perimenopause and all of this 100%. Stuff that we don't think about, because, and you'll experience it. It's just you're starting to feel that now. And I'm like such a hippy dippy about it because it's so true. There's no ounce of lie that any mom could even try and tell me that they haven't experienced a shift of some sort in who they are as a person, and it's a shattering and a rebuild all at the same exact time, kind of like puberty. is.
Yeah.
And I feel that even because my kids are out of space now. I have 3, but they're starting to get to a place where they're out. Like right now I'm solo. It's great. They're at my parents', but I can do that now.
Yeah.
I have the opportunity to do that. So now I'm kind of in like I just got my braces off stage. Like it's not
awesome.
100% out of the woods there, but I'm starting to feel a little bit more like myself, except I'm not the same person. So
And you're
it's
not
like I'm
supposed
trying
to be.
no.
Yeah.
But that's why I think for me, I leaned heavily into THC and really getting into it because it has helped me in more ways than I can even imagine. I wish I was more open to it earlier in motherhood.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot. And I think especially, I mean, I shouldn't say especially, everyone's different, but like postpartum, postpartum depression's really real. I have friends going through it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to hit these milestones of like, I want to breastfeed for 1 year, just to get to that point, which is like, that is really impressive. That's amazing. Your body's amazing. But at the same time, like I'm watching her mental health actively deteriorate, like absolutely just plummet. And I'm like, hey, sis, you don't have to, like, you've already done an amazing job. Like, if you want, and she won't consume cannabis until after breastfeeding and, and respect whatever you want to do. But at the same time, I'm like, it is important to get those, antibodies and have all the immune system building through breast milk. But at the same time, if you're depressed, you're also sending that through your breast milk too, So it's like, you need to take care of yourself and you need to be able to find a rational balance that works for you and your baby, because you are important too. Like the baby's very important, but your mental health and your ability to like be a mom is just as high up there, and something that you need to prioritize.
Oh, 1000%. And I think, going when we talked about like alcohol versus this, and that's the big thing that is associated with moms. That's an easy topic. I actually I wrote something because I'm going to post it on Instagram. It's like another video of me talking about this stuff. And I write something and I just said, I built my page. Like when I built my Instagram page years ago during the pandemic, I remember one of the posts that got me a lot of like newer followers was because it was during the pandemic. No one gave a shit. It was probably like 2:00 in the afternoon. And I was saying like, let's surviving the kids during the pandemic. I cracked open a bottle of wine and I was like, why the fuck not? And it was like an honest thing because I wasn't the only person doing that at that time. Everyone was
not
like, the
at
world's
all
on fire. Who gives a shit?
Everybody was drinking like every single day during the pandemic.
Oh God. Yeah. So it was insane. But I was like one of the moms that like was like pulled the carpet back and was like, this is actually what's going on. And people loved it. And they loved any reel that I ever did or video that I ever did with wine.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. Good. And I never came to a place, and I still don't have a place where I feel like I have a bad relationship with alcohol. But as I've gotten older and the stressors of my life have gotten way more prominent, and being a mom, they just compound on top of each other, and there's no sugarcoating it. Alcohol is the thing that everyone associates with motherhood. So you think that that's the answer. And I didn't realize that it was just actually creating and keeping me in the cycle that I was in of making me feel like shit, numbing a feeling. That feeling is going to come back tenfold because I just suppressed something that shouldn't have been suppressed.
Right. And then inflammatory, which again affects your mental health. Like if you like alcohol does equal chronic inflammation. We do know that both in your brain and in your body, which isn't just like the feeling of being swollen. Like there's a lot of other feelings associated with that.
Like I have PMDD. That's something that really came up after the birth of my third. And a lot of research has been associated with inflammation and PMDD. And so like I take a Pepcid AC, I take antihistamines, I try to eat more low histamine diet if I can, but like alcohol is one of those things that I didn't realize. I thought it was helping because again, it feels good in the moment. I
was going to say it helps for a tiny little window where you feel a little bit of relief and a little bit of, as you said too, it's compounding. So you feel that way for a little bit and then the next day you feel a little bit worse. So your body's like, oh, well, if you just have, a glass
and then
of wine
some of
or
the
two,
worst moments that I've had as a mom have always been, and I said this to my husband, because when I first started, my husband being a police officer, he's never touched it. He's never touched it when he was young. He doesn't. I told him the other day, because he gets retired soon. I was like, dude, when you are done, I am getting you so fucking lit. You are going to
I'm going
be
to roll up the
gone.
fattest J the second you retire.
Ever. And he was like, I don't want to. And I was like, why? And he was like, I don't want to. I think he's like going to be stubborn now of being like, want to go out. Not, he was like, he likes a cigarette every now and again. He was like, I got my cigarettes and I got my beer. And I'm like, that's stupid. I'm like, that's dumb. Whatever. Fine. One day. But
weed is also not for everyone. I've learned that through doing research quite a bit. Like, it could definitely benefit everyone, but I've seen people's brains where I see their reaction to cannabis, even at wicked low doses. And I'm like, you know what? Your body doesn't like weed. Let's not do this. Like, it's okay. Like, and that all, again, has to do with your endocannabinoid system. Maybe your system is producing a lot of cannabinoids already, and it just doesn't need to be supplemented with the plant at all. It's just riding on its own.
So individual. Yeah, exactly. So individual. But I was joking with him, and that was like the fact that I was even joking with him was such a big deal. Like for Christmas, he went to the dispensary, which was another big thing because he never went in. He never wanted to go in because being a police officer too, he was like very conflicted with it. And he put a bunch of like shit all in my stocking. It was great. He did a good job. And but we've come such a far way because years ago, the first time as a mom, was during the pandemic, I had gone up actually to Rhode Island. I had a friend that was living in Providence at the time, and right over the border to Massachusetts, it was legal. We went and drove to the dispensary over there, and they got something, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that." Like I was like, "I'm a mom now. Like I can't do that." And I was like, I'm going to stick to wine. And the girls got stuff. They don't have kids or whatever. And I was like, okay, you have fun, you singletons and whatever, have good old time. And they did. And they were great. They were like chilling out with me, no different than a glass of wine. So the next night they're like, can you just try just like a little, I think they gave me 2 milligrams.
It's
and
a perfect starting dose. Love that.
Perfect. And I felt like I just had like my glasses of wine where I was giggling with my girlfriends and just relaxed. And that was like, that was what I wanted. Yes.
Yeah. Great.
That was what I was chasing. And I was like, that was great. And I remember telling my husband about it. He was so like, oh my God, like this is drugs, drugs.
I mean, that's what it's, as you said, like it's associated with that high school, like bag of dry ass weed and like weed is weed is weed. That's what it used to be. And now it's like, you have all these strains, you have all these tools, you have all these consumption methods. And it really is like, I think people do. You remember the old commercial, the like Dare commercial, whatever, the woman like melted on her couch. Like, I feel like a lot of people still think that's the only way that you can feel from weed. Like it's not social, it's not fun, but it's just not true. And especially like as a parent, and again, I get so many messages about this, and it's actually written in my book too. There's a section on it about being a parent and using cannabis to increase play, like the act of play. A lot of people have trouble relaxing and having fun and giggling with their kids and playing dress up and having tea parties and baking cookies and just like relaxing, not having to worry about the other, million things you have to do and all of that stuff, just like sitting down and playing for a little bit. And, cannabis can help with that. And so many parents find benefit in that, but just have trouble communicating that's how it's helping them, of just play, like increasing play.
Yeah. Well, and that's how he viewed it. And I was like, okay, there's just so much more. But over time, and one of my biggest thing in talking about the wine comparison is I've always told him, I was like, I need you to pay attention, because when I really started to like get into it and was like, I'm going to go to the dispensary, because I used to sneak around. Like I didn't want to do that, but I knew that he was uncomfortable. And it was because I felt scared to have a conversation. And when I learned, and I finally did, I had said to him, I was like, I need you to think about like the bad moments that I've had. And I'm a mom, like I'm a human. We've all had bad moments, but I'm going to tell you right now, some of the worst moments of me having like a snap at the kids or just being irritable or impatient is at the end of the night when you've been through it and I poured glasses of wine. It's always been
That's so smart to reflect on that too and be like, okay, when was I at my worst? What was I doing at that moment? Like what led up to that? But
even thinking about too is like, I've never been in a shouting match. Like think about anyone here like that's listening, and if you're someone that has fun drinking alcohol, again, I'm not saying alcohol is all bad. I still drink alcohol, but I'm very mindful of it. Maybe that's being almost 35 this year and being in my 30s is like being more mindful of
humbled
the
by
shit I'm putting.
hangovers. You have to be.
God, I've always God. But yes, but I've been more aware of how it makes me feel and act. Where I'm like, I could think back even just like during my high school days of drinking and like doing all that stuff. Is the shit that I did in high school, college, beyond anything involving alcohol. I would never act that way, and I've never acted that way after having some sort of marijuana in my system. I've never gotten in a fight with my husband and cried because I misconstrued something he'd said, or I've never like think about any drunk experience. I've never had that.
Every near-death experience I've had has been alcohol related.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. See,
at minimum.
So
usually
there's always going to be alcohol in there. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It always started there. But that's seriously, and I said that to my husband, and he was thinking in terms of like, and it was really when I was starting to go through PMDD and like really starting to like acknowledge that like I wasn't okay. Like I knew I wasn't okay. And where I had said to him, I was like, this is helping. And I'm like you had said, playing with my kids. I'm so present with them when I'm and not that I'm not, and it's not like I need it all the time, but like, especially on days where I know that my head is still going through the list while I'm talking to them, I'm still making lists in the back of my head. And mom's brains are different. I had a guest on a little while ago who literally is a psychologist and behavioral psychologist who studied women's and mom's brains and the transformation that happens in matrescence. It's literally a physiological thing. Our brain changes, the amount of gray matter that we have in our brains and things like that. It changes, where it's like we need different things. And that's
yeah. And like, I have not been consuming cannabis while I've been pregnant, except for when I get a severe migraine, because I am a medical patient. Like I still have severe migraines, even though I'm pregnant, So I'll take like just like a one hitter, just enough to like help me through that. Yeah. But, same thing that you're talking about, like your brain, like, I think a lot of people think that we use cannabis, again, just to numb ourselves, similar to alcohol. No, like so many people need it to think clearly, to communicate with their kids or to their husband, to literally be able to take the thoughts in their head and make it into words. Like that's one of the uses of cannabis is communication, especially for like autistic people, autistic adults, or even autistic children. That's one of the huge benefits is communication. People who normally can't communicate well, cannabis can help a lot of people communicate well too, which is, a benefit that we don't think about a lot, but it's so valuable. And as I've not been using cannabis every single day, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's really hard for me to communicate sometimes. It's really hard for me to be like, a lot of my job is creative. Like I write peer review publications, I make social media content, and a lot of that takes creativity. And I'm finding I'm struggling a bit, just like kind of getting my brain to think in unique ways and kind of outside the box, because my brain does really well with cannabis. It's at its highest functioning state when I have cannabis in my brain. So that's been something I'm like, okay, this isn't forever, but like, I can't wait to use higher doses of THC again.
I know, right? Well, and okay, so I want to go into that, and we'll wrap it up a little bit. I try not to go over an hour, but this is just, we have so much good shit. We're going to have to bring you back on. But with pregnancy, breastfeeding and stuff like that. So with, I'm a nerd on your podcast and stuff like that. With the research nonprofit that you have, is that something that you guys are researching? Is like, it's hard because that's one of those areas.
That is one of the most difficult subjects to research with any substance on planet Earth is substance and pregnancy, because it's not ethical to do a study where you're dosing, a bunch of moms, right? So what we do have is we have survey data, and a significant amount of moms are using cannabis. But again, like the shift in my brain that I'm learning during pregnancy is, one, you don't want to, get fucked up. You're not using substances for like that effect. It's more of like, it's not people saying, okay, what drug am I going to use during pregnancy? It's, oh, I have hyperemesis gravidarum. Like I'm vomiting a lot. Even if you don't have it that severe, like if you're nauseous every single day,
it's awful. Yeah.
That is awful. It's lowering your quality of life. It's releasing a bunch of stress hormones to your baby. It's not good.
I just read, I think it was it yesterday? I feel like it was yesterday or somewhere. Someone either reposted it or it was a news thing where it was a mom. I think she just
killed herself.
Because of hyperemesis, the HG.
And there's so much shame of, no matter what you're going through, if you take anything, there's so much shame. It's saying, okay, well, she took Zofran, she took Tylenol, she used cannabis, and it's making women just not talk about it. And it's making us just kind of make decisions based on whatever we think is, the smartest, not based on research. And I've read all the research on cannabis and pregnancy. Like, I've read it all, and I'm like, okay, there are some risks, but there's risks associated with everything. But I think from the research that I've done, it's also understanding, like, at what stage is that fetus actually producing receptors? What phase is it actually changing the neurochemistry? Because that's actually what we're more worried about. But that's the same issue with something like Zofran too. That's working on your serotonin system. Cannabis is working on your endocannabinoid system, right? So it's still an issue. And again, it's balancing this quality of life thing. For me, if I have a migraine for 3 days, my quality of life has gone down substantially. I can't work anymore. I can't eat anymore. I can't drink anymore. I can't do anything. So for me, taking a one hit of cannabis where I don't even feel high, I just feel relief. That's a no-brainer. I'm not worried about it for a second. I don't think I'm not worried about it at all. I trust this plant. I trust the research. But the crazy thing is I had never, like, I'd read the research, but I had never Googled cannabis and pregnancy, just like straight up Googled it. Oh my gosh, the amount of judgment, fear mongering, like all of this stuff. And I'm like, this isn't even supported by the research. This isn't even.
You have to go to Reddit, because I even looked it up because I wanted to see if people are talking about it, what are people doing? Because you're pregnant, so you're a big. Have you announced it yet on social media?
No, I probably should, but
I mean, because I don't know if you follow her, Natalie Benson.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So she's pregnant and she couldn't even hold it. She was like, this is not a fancy way of announcing it, but I'm so fucking miserable that I need to just get it out there. But where she's not using either. And I think obviously, and if she is, she won't be talking about it. I can guarantee you she won't say.
She isn't, but she also said she's using Zofran, right? So she's using something that's changing, it's making her feel better, but also there are risks associated with Zofran that are equal, if not worse, than cannabis, but the stigma of cannabis is so much worse.
Well, because you can't even bring it up. Where I remember reading it on Reddit where someone had said oh no, it wasn't on Reddit. It was my neighbor. I was talking to her. It was when I was pregnant with my third, and she already knew that I was engaging, and she would ask me, and I was like, well, I don't want to, and something, because there wasn't a research and it wasn't being talked enough about. And she had said that she had a friend that was, I think she had same thing like you. I think she either had morning sickness or migraine or something. And she had mentioned it to her OBGYN that she decided to take a hit, and CPS got involved.
Yeah. I mean, I would never tell my physician just because, I know my physician doesn't know anything about cannabis or the endocannabinoid system. In that relationship, I'm significantly more educated than they are. But again, as you're saying, you can get in a lot of trouble for you and your family. So it's not safe to bring it up.
Not even worth it. So they don't even bring it up. But because of that, now there's no research and whatever. But I know where, for me, I really struggled when after I had my third, because I really wanted to use, but I was afraid of breast milk and breastfeeding and using. And
cannabinoids are much fattier.
It's more fatty. Yeah. So that's where I got nervous, because I was I know breast milk's really fatty.
Compared to alcohol, which is not fatty at all. You can, a lot of people say, okay, if you're not feeling drunk, then that's a safe time to breastfeed, or, whatever that is. Cannabinoids do stick in breast milk longer because milk is very fatty. Cannabinoids are really fatty, but you also have a lot of endocannabinoids in that breast milk as well. And that actually helps your baby develop the latch response, to your breast, is the cannabinoids in your breast milk. So again, though, same thing with alcohol. They're at very, very low levels. Even if you're smoking, try to use the minimum amount that you are. I don't think you need to pump and dump, but if you can pump and dilute, I think that's going to solve pretty much every problem. If you have a large vat of milk in your fridge or something, and you can just dump some of that milk in there and dilute it out. Again, it's going to be in 0.0001 concentration.
Okay. All right. Interesting. See, these are all the things that people aren't talking about. And again, everyone make a decision here if this is you, but this is one of those things that, I don't know, this is why we need to normalize the conversation of just having a mom circle, of being able to be maybe it's, I don't know. Again, this is how we make our educated decisions also, because I feel like my sister and I were talking about this where we just have a pen, like we carry our pen all the way. Oh, like we joke all the time. Our pen's always around. I think that's like the laughing joke I've seen everyone where you're constantly losing it. I have a bunch of tools and I have them around all the time.
I can't have pens because I lose them literally constantly.
God. Like literally, it's like a panic attack every single day. I'm like, where did I put it?
I think my last one's at the post office because I've had it in my lap and I like got up to go into the post office and dropped it in the parking lot.
Yeah. I need to put like an air tag on it. But she was saying she went in last year for like a leap. I think it was like a OBGYN, like a biopsy of some sort. And so she had to be put under anesthesia. And her anesthesiologist, and you might know this, had said, like, asked her, and they're like, well, how much do you use? And she's like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, how often do you smoke pot? And she's like, well, I have a vape pen. And she's like, so like maybe 3 times a week. And she's like 3 puffs a week. And she's like, no, way more than that.
That's the one time you have to be honest with your medical professional.
And they had said, and so she doesn't remember it, but they had told her the reason why they wanted to know was because it can impact anesthesia.
Yeah, it can. And it may require you to have a significantly larger dose of anesthesia. So if you aren't honest with your anesthesiologist and they're like figuring out what dose to use and you're like, oh, like I use once a month, but you're actually like using 5 times a day, they may underdose you and you may wake up during that procedure.
They said, well, they didn't say my sister did, but they said like, cause she doesn't remember it. It was definitely when she was like in the twilight zone, but they said she really fought. Like it really took a lot extra than what they had expected. And
which is so scary. Like you need to be honest there.
So I didn't know that. But like, again, these are all things that I'm trying to like, again, this episode is going to be a little bit longer, but like, these are things that like, if you're a beginner here and you're just like, I've never done any of this stuff. This is why I want you guys to have all the facts. So that way it is as positive of an experience as possible. But going forward from that, the problem in like talking about like stigma and talking to doctors is now like, I know I've talked about it with my doctor, but I've heard from others that the moment they bring it up, that they've even touched it, even if it's legal, somehow it impacts the real problem as to what's going on.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever read your like detailed medical records, but I recently started reading mine and I'm like, oh, wow, that's actually really concerning how many details they're taking. And I will say this, honestly, if you don't have that type of relationship with your physician where you're like, oh, I feel comfortable telling them this, they're not going to judge me. They're not going to treat me as a drug addict, because a lot of people would do that. Like if I told my doctor, like I take 10 dabs a day, they would think I was an absolute drug addict. Right. And they would treat me like that. So I recently did an episode of my podcast about medical cards. And if you actually do want to talk to a medical professional who's not going to treat you like that, I would highly recommend getting a medical card, because then you're going to have access. Like I got mine through LeafWell. They're amazing. And they have a whole network of physicians. They have somebody who specializes in, prenatal care or OBGYN. Like they have one that specializes in neurology and like all of these. You can find a specialist within their network who's actually educated on cannabis and the ECS, because physicians are not required to learn about how cannabis works in the body. And most physicians are at the age where the stigma's the highest, the reefer madness era, right? That's where most physicians are. So I wouldn't feel comfortable talking to most physicians about it, but within the LeafWell network, I feel very comfortable. I can talk to any physician there. I know that they are taking a patient first perspective instead of this like really biased approach to medicine that we've seen, that's like always pushing pharma and doesn't believe in any other type of medicine, including cannabis. So that would be my suggestion if you want an educated medical, and they'll tell you about like anesthesia and surgery and like all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. All right. And then the last thing I'm going to talk to you about, and then we'll wrap it up, is the legalities of things. But I know we had talked about like Delta 8 and stuff like that. And this is something that I want to bring up only because when I share, like being on social media, there's a lot of companies, like I had said, this is kind of, I can tell, I don't know if you can tell, that this is really starting to like, it's catching on, where a lot of like small businesses of creating gummies are coming out, and seltzer drinks. Like I have one right here. I actually enjoy it because it actually tastes really good.
Seltzers are fun.
Seltzers are fun. I don't feel as much off of them. I've never really gotten,
but I kind of like the ones that are dosed at like even like 5 milligrams, because
that's what this one is.
Because I stopped drinking last year just because it wasn't vibing with my body, and I am a very social person. So like, I still love to like be there and sipping on something and like chatting with people. And I'm not going to drink water. It's not that fun. So having something like that, where like 5 milligrams, you can still titrate your dose. You can still have like 2 of them if you want, maybe 3 if you're there for a while, you know, whatever it is. I love that level of social. You can still be elevated as the party keeps going on, you know, without having to drink if you don't want to drink.
No, because and this one's cycling frog, but I like it because it's during the day. But again, I don't feel like it's the same as me pulling.
That looks good.
No, this one is ruby grapefruit. Cycling frog. It's really good. But again, I don't feel like it's not knocking me. And that's the thing, is like I pull a seltzer and I'm like, this isn't a high noon. This isn't vodka. Like, I feel like there's such a difference where we're not like realizing that, where I'm like, this is just refreshing. I need a seltzer. I want bubbles. But what I was going to say is that that's becoming like such a huge frontier, and the legalities, and it's the Farm and Agricultural Bill, right?
Yeah, the Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill is really what allowed this to be sold the way it is. And you kind of mentioned social media and like sponsorships maybe, and maybe companies saying, hey, like, you know, I have a gummy brand, I have a drink brand, you interested in doing a post, whatever that is. And I have such mixed feelings about this industry, because on one hand, I love the accessibility. I love that people can purchase stuff online. I love that you can purchase drinks, gummies, even THCA flower, which is just regular weed. You know, you can
That's what I didn't know. I have to talk to you about that too. Okay, we're going to get to that. Yes.
You can purchase that online, like very, very easily. You don't need to go to a dispensary and pay 32% tax for something. Like, that tax is egregious. It shouldn't be that high.
No,
you know, so on that end, I'm like, okay, love that more people have access to these products, but I don't love the lack of regulation. And specifically, you know, for the flower end of things, it's not regulated as much. Like, you're not required to test for heavy metals. You're not required to test for pesticides, that kind of stuff. So if that's something you like really care about, just make sure where you're purchasing it, still test for those things, even though they don't have to.
And now for me, like, I'm going to ask you from me going forward, because that's what that is something that I'm starting to get approached more with, and I'm learning more. And that's like, I just had someone recently send me, and I haven't reviewed it because, again, I'm trying to learn, and I want to actually find where, because I was listening to you, who you just had on, and they were talking about it may have been an older episode that I Googled. I looked up THCA because I was like, what the hell is this? Because it was a newer brand that this girl sent me. She has a farm and she makes gummies, but she sent me bags of flour. And it was like, how is this happening? Because I didn't know that was allowed. And then I was like, THCA. And I was like, so what happens if I smoke this? Like, I'm afraid of smoking this. Like, what's going to happen to me? Because I don't know if this is like,
you're smart to be skeptical. Like, no, you're smart because there's so many, people call it like alphabet soup now, because there's all of these synthetic THC derivatives. You might see like THCP, HHC, Delta 8 THC, Delta 10 THC. All of those are synthetic. THCA is this really unique situation where the hemp bill specifically outlined that THC was the illegal substance. Okay. Yep. But when you're growing the plant, when the plant is actually growing, it's not producing THC. It's producing THCA. It's actually also not producing CBD. It's producing CBDA. And that A just stands for acid. And it's just an acidic compound, or an acidic component of that molecule. Yep. So what happens though is, like, the plant's producing that, and then the nug literally has mostly THCA in it. We grind it up, we smoke it, and during that smoking process, THCA converts to THC. It's very natural. It's completely, it's the same exact thing that you're purchasing from a dispensary. It's THCA flower.
Well, and that's how I started. That's why I was like, I'm very confused, because then I remembered, like, when I go on my dispensary and I see the percentage of THCA in the flower.
And I was like, your certificate of analysis. It's going to say,
and I was like,
THCA at X%, THCA at like 0.8% or something, like really, really small. Because that 0.8 is just like a little bit of the acid that's fallen off some of those molecules. Again, a natural process, but it's significantly more THCA. Like, that is the natural form of THC in the plant, is this THCA. So again, because the language that the Farm Bill was written in, and it was outlawing THC, not THCA, they actually made it so, like, the whole cannabis industry can ship straight up weed anywhere in the country.
And that's why, and I need everyone to hear this though, because that's the thing is like and for moms, especially if you're someone that has heard me and you live in a state that doesn't have dispensaries yet, it's not legal, and you're looking and you're like, okay, well, the only option is gummies. No, there's not. But then how do we determine, like, don't go to a gas station. Don't do that. Okay.
No, I'll drop one brand that I like, and then you can also, look. So the episode was with a woman from Cannabis Supply Company.
Okay.
And I've actually toured their facility. I've met everyone there. The people are amazing. They test all of their products above and beyond what they have to. So they're a fantastic company. They also do make gummies. They sell the flower. So I would recommend checking them out. But even if you find another company online, I agree, don't go to a gas station because just don't do that.
No, anything that you are getting from a gas station, a 7-Eleven, I don't know. Delta 8. Is Delta 8 synthetic? Is that 100% always synthetic?
Always.
Like, Delta 8's scary. Don't do Delta 8. Anyone I've ever talked to, well,
this is my other feelings on this though. Is like,
I have tried Delta 8 that are really good. I have tried one gummy that I do enjoy that has Delta 8 in it, but it has also sent me to Mars.
Normally, Delta 8 THC is a synthetic version of Delta 9 THC, which is the one found in the plant. Although some Delta 9 is also synthetic. We won't go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. Anyway, so Delta 8, it is a little bit weaker than regular THC on your cannabinoid 1 receptor. So it's not going to get you as high, but the Delta 8 companies typically will dose higher. So their gummies will be in like 20 or 50 milligram gummies rather than like a 5 or 10 milligram gummy. So often they do send people to space because they're just dosed differently, and people make the assumption that because it's weaker, they're going to feel weaker. When I tried Delta 8, because I'm very much I'll try anything once. I tried Delta 8 and I immediately got a headache, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And it lasted for like a very long time. And not all Delta 8's bad. It is synthetic. So I'm not saying everything synthetic's bad. It's only bad when it's not manufactured the right way. So if it's not a pure Delta 8, it might contain all this other stuff from synthesis that you don't even know what's in there. It's just byproducts from chemical synthesis. So
and again, it's because that bill doesn't have the greatest regulation. So that's why it really matters. Zero regulation. So that's why that's why it's like, and I want your feedback on it because this is becoming such a frontier. Like you can see it. It's becoming something that I know like women are getting into. I know like women, it's very heavy, which is cool. I love it. I love doing that. And I'm really hoping that these people are putting in good quality work into what they're doing. But I have a feeling that's not going to always be the case with them being a dime a dozen. So like for anyone listening, again, just do your research. Take it very seriously.
A lot of companies within the Delta 8, within this synthetic category, they're still doing tests, even though they're not required to. So that's what I would look for if I was purchasing from one of these companies, is saying, okay, so normally if I buy something at a dispensary, it has a certificate of analysis. A lot of people are providing those certificate of analysis with a Delta 8 product or a Delta 10 product or whatever it is. So look for that. Look for residual solvent. Look for purity if they're sharing that. Look for, how concentrated it is. All that information should be available on a lot of people's websites. And honestly, if you have a hemp shop near you, not like a smoke shop, not a gas station, if you have like a hemp shop, they're very educated often too. So that might be a good place to start and say, hey, are any of your products tested? Can you show me that? Can you walk me through this? Because even on the legal market, if you're buying a tincture and it says, 200 milligrams of CBN, 200 milligrams of THC, all that CBN's also produced synthetically. Like it doesn't have to be labeled as synthetically, but it's going to be, it's the only way to produce it, Okay. So as a consumer, it's really, really hard to gauge all this. You have to be insanely educated to be able to, pull out all of this little nuance. So again, like, ask a stoner, ask a friend who knows something about weed.
That's why I'm like, I get asked all the time about these questions because when I open up and I'm like, someone will ask me for a recommendation. I'm like, God, I want to, I have to voice message. If you guys are listening, if you've ever messaged me, you know that I've probably voice messaged you back because I just have to go through the whole thing where I'm like, I can't just be like, go get A, B, and C, where I'm like, okay, you guys have to understand that there's sativa, there's indica, there's like hybrids, there's different temperatures, there's gummies, there's like, what are you looking for? Like, what do you not want to feel like? There's so many.
So much going on.
Oh my God. But it's just like, yeah, ask a stoner. I always say for people, like, if you are not sure who to ask, and if you is legal in your state, go to your dispensary, go to it. Like, don't be scared of them. They're not scary. I guarantee it's actually going to be way nicer than you ever expect it to be. Cause I think people think that dispensaries are like these gross, like drug deals. Like,
right. Like a hookah bar. I feel like people like picture them like a hookah bar. Like it's smoky and like dark. And
you can't have anything. You can't smoke in a dispensary. There's legalities. There's very strict rules that these people are following. And again, if you're talking to someone truly that cares about, like, I always say it, like, and we'll wrap it up, is I love this stuff, and I'm selfish in my love of it because I don't want it to go anywhere. Like, we've already come this far, essentially, of getting it. I mean, not every state is, but the legalization, the fact that we are even having this conversation is really cool, and not the norm. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but we can screw it up. Like, they can yank this away from us very quickly, if we're not careful. And I think a lot of the stoners are like,
especially the legal market. I mean, the illicit market will always be here. It's still here, even in markets that have a legal market. You know, we're always going to survive. But yeah, as you're saying, like, you are representing something greater than yourself, like always with this plan, especially with this momentum that we have. So the way you talk about it, the way you represent it. And also, I think what states need to do is, you know, you just brought up public consumption. We have all of these avenues to get weed, but nowhere to use weed right now, which I think is like an absolutely insane thing, whether it's outside, inside, public places, safe places. Like, they're essentially like, you know, here, everyone, you can have your drugs, but make sure you do them inside, away from everyone. And it's like, no, like with alcohol, we have bars where people can be social and share things. We need the same thing with cannabis. I know that's coming, but, you know, it's a little.
There's so many things. There's so many. Like, my husband can talk about this all day. He's like, again, he's big into like the legal portion, where he now is, like I had said, he's come a long way of like supporting me in it because he's seen such a benefit with me that I think it's changed his whole outlook on it. But he always says, he's like, it's the legal portion that scares the shit out of me, because he was like, we don't know enough about it, where if I pull you over, I won't know if you're high. But again, if you get in a car accident, and like, it does something that's in my head where I have 3 kids, where I'm like, I don't want to accidentally get in a car accident. And I smoked pot last week and I was not even, you know,
especially
like,
for like EMT or medical professionals, you know, those are honestly the people who experience the most trauma and could really benefit from cannabis the most, but they don't use it because of what you're saying. It's going to be in their system for so long that they're scared if anything happens at work, that they're going to be, you know, tagged as somebody who's abusing this drug, where you could use cocaine and it could be out of your system in, you know, 24 to 48 hours with no repercussions. So it's almost like, you know, we really do need to figure that out. And the legal,
we need more research. We need more people talking about it. And that I wanted to ask you. So, like, with your nonprofit research stuff, is there ways for people to sign up for research studies? Are you doing those? Okay.
Yeah. So the best way is, if you can put this in the show notes, because it's going to be hard to spell, but if you go to appliedpharmacognosy.org, right when you enter, a thing's going to pop up to sign up for our email list. Those are the first people that are notified anytime that we're launching a new study. And the studies fill up insanely fast. So sometimes we do studies on like specific cannabinoids, terpenes, populations of people, or even specific products. Like, we just had one launch called High Be Gone, which is a product that is, as we talked about earlier, that can help take away your high if you're feeling overwhelmed. That filled up in like 20 minutes. And that also speaks to like how much that product is needed on the market, where people are like, let me participate in this research. I have trouble finding my dose.
I told you, we were talking about it. Riley and I were talking about it. I have a video that I asked recently on TikTok of mom, like gardening mom to gardening moms, like, what do we do if we accidentally take again, if you're new here and if you're experimenting, the best of us will have a moment where we just overdid it. It's just, it happens. Riley had it happen. I've had it happen. Sometimes we expect it. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we ride it out and cross our fingers, hope for the best. Sometimes we just need a quicker solution. And I'd asked, but the amount of people that responded of being like, been there, done that. This is what you
need. Everyone has.
We covered it. Peppercorn, lemon, citrus.
Yep, citrus would work. Yep.
Okay.
And specifically in water too. Water is so important. Like hydrate.
Question on the flip side though, for getting higher, mango. Is that true?
It's not really true. There's no real data to that.
Have you seen that shit on TikTok? That
I have.
Mango,
I mean,
the stuff that you add to like get higher.
Yeah, the like terpene blend stuff.
Yeah.
I've tried them. I've tried them all. There's really no data supporting it. I think with those terpene blend things, it's more of the excessive caffeine and sugar that's formulated in them that makes you feel a little bit differently. But you know what? If it works for you, sick.
Have fun.
Yeah, have fun. Like,
if it's not hurting you, have fun.
Yeah, but there's not data that backs it up. But yeah, if it's making you have a good time, then that's great. Keep doing it.
Yeah. So lemon, peppercorn,
weighted blanket for sure.
I've heard cinnamon, turmeric, any of those that are like
adaptogen type things.
Yeah, I've heard those.
I would also just say like distract yourself. Like
color.
You know,
color, turn on a show.
Don't just like stare at the carpet. Like it's not gonna work.
And this is like again, and wrapping it up is like for moms here listening, if you are going to try it, make sure again, like communicate this. Like it doesn't have to be a secret. If you feel not comfortable talking to someone that I don't know, like your husband, if you're trying to hide it from your husband, I would reevaluate that conversation and why that.
Well, that's also going to contribute to your set and setting. You brought this up earlier when you were talking about how you were anxious to start and then, you know, that kind of spiraled into a negative cannabis experience. If you're having, you know, extreme anxiety or something's going on and it's really affecting your mental health, or maybe you're at somebody's house that smells like cat pee and it's dirty and it's gross and it's, you know, whatever it is, like that's your set and setting. We talk about that all the time with psychedelics. Same thing with cannabis. If you're not feeling comfortable before you consume,
it's not going to be good.
Don't consume. It's not going to be a good time for you. As your brain expands when you consume this product, it's going to expand in the wrong direction. It's going to make you hyperfixate
psychedelics.
On
we didn't
all
talk
of that.
Psychedelics. I'm going to have to bring you back on.
I love talking psychedelics.
That's we're going to have to talk.
Especially with moms, actually. I think that's should be our next conversation because I have friends that I have helped through some really, really intense like birth trauma through psychedelics.
I wouldn't doubt it because I in full honesty, well, I don't, who am I saying full honesty to? I don't give a shit. God. I did shrooms when I was in high school and it's the last time I did it. I mean, high school was then there and whatnot, but I loved it. And it was like still to this day, one of like the most impactful experiences of my life. Like it really can be. And so I haven't, but because of what we were saying is like where your setting is, like again, tip for mom, whether you're talking about psychedelics or weed, make sure you're safe and make sure that you are in a happy state of mind. Again, like I always say this and I encourage this for a lot of moms that are trying to make the switch from, we talked about wine and stuff like that. It's not the same feeling. And I just want to point that out. It's not going to be what you are expecting from drinking 2 glasses, a bottle of wine. You're not going to be getting that from smoking pot, eating a gummy, whatever method you are looking for. It's not going to give you that. And I want to like make that comparison very clear because I hear it as a switch off all the time. There's so many things that we can talk about. We have to wrap this up.
I know.
But there's so many like that. Everyone's like, oh, you know, moms have a glass of wine. Why is it a big deal that a mom's doing this? And I'm like, it's actually not the same. But these are the things that I want you to be aware of, that when you start, you're going to be more aware of how you feel. You're going to be more in tune with how you feel. That can make you incredibly anxious. So make sure that where you're at, you're safe. I don't like to go, like when I first started engaging in it, I don't drive usually on it as it is, just because again, we talked about the legality portion that terrifies me. But I always try to make sure that I don't have anywhere to go or
exactly. You won't need to get into a vehicle. You won't need to take care of people.
I think about like, I have little kids and I can, trust me, I can mom very well when I'm in that state, but I'm not getting high. Like that's the thing too, is like, we have to switch the conversation of what we expect when we hear about a mom doing that. Trust me, I do get high, but usually they're in bed.
Just medicated too. And that's the same thing I was talking about with migraines. Like I never felt high for a second when I've used cannabis during pregnancy for migraines.
Felt normal.
I felt just normal with a little bit less of a headache. Like not high at all. I was not high. And again, that's why I'm just like not worried about it at all for a second.
No. And I think that's like the things that we have to just like, there's so many conversations and routes for all this, but start small, Start slow. Talk to stoners. If you don't know who to talk to,
Talk
reach
to
out to
women.
Riley.
Women understand their body much better. They're often much more empathetic to how other people are feeling. Especially, you know, I always recommend when women are a little hesitant to try mushrooms or something, do it with a group of women, your close friends, because no matter what happens, like you feel connected, you feel open, you can cry, you can do whatever you want. And like, it really is like a really beautiful experience. Of course, you know, if you have a bunch of dudes you trust, that's fine too.
That's cool too. But yeah, women, we get it. Us moms get it too. And you'll get it too at some point, Riley, which is so exciting. But it's true. Just start small, start slow, and you know, reach out to Riley or I and go from there. But don't stop asking questions and don't feel stupid. And I always say that no matter whatever situation you're in, we don't even have to be talking about pot or any of that, but like any situation you're in, if you are surrounded by a friend, a coworker, a professional, a doctor, a dispensary person, whatever you are doing, if that person ever in your life makes you feel stupid, they're not for you.
No.
Go find someone else to talk to. And that again applies to all areas of your life, but I mean that more, I guess, with this because
well, there's always something to learn too, because of how everyone's brain reacts a bit differently to cannabis. Like I'm always asking people like, how did that strain make you feel? Like what's everyone feeling right now? Like, and it's so interesting. I was just in like for work essentially at this event where people were trying out new strains, and I wasn't smoking because I'm pregnant, but I was still there. And I'm like, okay, everyone, well, I can't smoke. So let's do a little survey. Do you find that energetic? Do you find that calming? Do you find that euphoric? You know, whatever it is. And the different answers, it's really incredible how different strains make people feel. So it really is a personalized medicine. And you really do learn like these types of brains gravitate towards this type of weed, where these types of brains gravitate towards this type of weed. And you're always learning, especially if you're asking questions and you're like receptive to the education.
Yeah. And again, and like you had said, the final thing that we'll wrap up with is take this seriously. If you are a stoner, I want you to just like take a second and just do me promise us both, take this as like use your experience as a badge of honor and now pass on the torch of just making sure we want people to feel really good. That's what this whole plant is for. Like essentially this is not like a plant that we want people to feel fucked up from.
No,
like, we want
stoners are experts. And you know, if somebody reaches out to you for information, it's because they think of you as an expert in this medicine. So again, like, you know, even if somebody doesn't feel high their first time, at least you've now introduced it in a way that they feel comfortable and they say, oh, I thought that was going to be way worse. I thought that was going to be way more intense. And you can say, yeah, see, like dose matters a lot. Next time, if you want a little more, I'll increase it by 2 milligrams and you can get a little bit more from it if that's what you want, or you can just stay where you're at.
Exactly. So awesome. Okay. Well, Riley, anything else you want to leave off with? Anything exciting that you want to announce? I know your book. I'm going to link all this stuff. I'm going to link her podcast, website, all of the info, anything that we talked about today, I will link in show notes. That way you guys can explore and learn and have fun.
Not really. I mean, I'll be sharing a lot more about my personal experience with pregnancy on my podcast. And I'll probably announce it on social media at some point, but I don't even know when.
No rush, no pressure. It's your journey in all of it. That's so exciting. Awesome.
Yeah. I just feel like it's so personal. Like I know I'm supposed to I'm really not like an influencer. I'm just a content creator, educator. So it's also like, I'm not going to vlog my pregnancy.
No.
Like that's just not me, and good for the people who do, but you know, I'll announce it.
I say it all the time. I wish I never had, because I got into this before when it was kind of like you didn't think about it, and I wish I never had, because it's just like I have to think about it now. Where even like my youngest, I dropped her off and I didn't realize they'd asked like if they could put up a picture on Facebook, and I was like, no, you can't, and I was like, not because like, and I show them from time to time, but it's slowed down, but I've already shown them before where I'm like, I can't even have their picture because if someone were to reverse Google search that, and I can't take that back.
Yeah.
And I can't take it back because I didn't think about like their face on there.
Dang.
So now it's kind of like
that reverse search thing like changed the world. And
and now it's scary. Now I'm like, now you really can't be anywhere else because all it takes is them going through and just finding you on my pages, and I don't know, but
dang,
it's creepy. I know. But anyway, okay. Well, thanks for being here on that light note.
All right, Mama, that is a wrap on today's episode of Picking Daisies. I hope today's chat left you feeling seen, understood, and maybe even gave you a good laugh along the way. As we all know, motherhood isn't easy, life isn't easy, but it's moments like these where we can connect and share our stories that really help make that load feel a lot lighter. So if you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean the world to me if you could take a moment to leave a rating and review. Your feedback not only will help the show grow, but also it will make sure it reaches other moms who might need that same dose of honesty, humor, and heart. And don't forget, if something in today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or hop on over to Instagram or wherever you connect on social media and keep the conversation going. I love hearing your stories and being a part of this journey with you. Thank you for being here and for showing up for yourself. And then, of course, sharing that space with me. So until next time, remember, we all grow through what we go through. You've got this, Mama. I'll see you next week.